Awesome. So let's get started. So today, this is Maddie Robinson interviewing Robert Nicholls about his book House of Gold. How are you doing today, Rob?
I'm pretty good. It's September 1st and it's still kind of like summer out there. So,
Yeah, out here in the mountains, our summer was pretty much constant rain, and I'm not gonna lie, part of me secretly liked it because it wasn't busy. Uh,
uh,
but it is a really nice September, so
yeah,
I'm really excited to talk to you about your book. So, just since we're starting off, did you want to tell the listeners a little bit about your book and a little bit about yourself?
sure. My name is Robert Nicholls and I live in Calgary. And I'm married to a Finnish lovely lady, and we have two children who are half Finnish. And so I got that kind of Scandinavian connection going on. And I've been teaching off and on yoga for about 25 years, Ashtanga style yoga for the most part. And now I'm working for the city of Calgary. City of Calgary as a gardener. And what else? I'm in the Rosicrucian order, Amorc. I do it's like some meditations and stuff we do there, and some study you do like called monographs. You study these weekly and meditate and whatever. I'm also a 32nd degree Freemason. I know some people think that's oh boo, but
A little
I'm
spooky.
I'm navigating through that. There's like just like anything, there's good and bad people in every organization, right? So I like to think I'm one of the good ones, and I definitely get something out of it, but I've definitely scaled it back from when I used to. During the pandemic, I you could have spent like time just being doom and gloom and whatever, but then I just started drawing because I'm an artist and I have a degree in art from the Alberta College of Art, which is now called the Alberta University of the Arts. So I started drawing these pointillist style drawings that are just like lots of little dots. And then I was like, okay, I could put some information with this because I never really considered myself a writer per se. So the process was I just started drawing and then I'd like research stuff and then I'd order more books and I'd kind of like create art to go with what I'd just written and back and forth. Some of the advice on a book is just like just edit, edit, edit. So um, my first book that came out in 2022 is the Boat of Ra. What was it called? Boat of Ra, Sacred Egypt Reimagined. So very focused on my interests and travels to Egypt, two different trips and crazy stuff that happened there. Then after that, I wrote more my experiences in India and Nepal, my travel diary, and where I talk with my younger self and my older self, and maybe I haven't changed that much. I have older skin, but maybe some of the ways I think and what I was interested in is same. And then I just kept information just kept coming in the Egyptian stuff. There's just so much like new discoveries going on every week and so on. So I just started writing things down. Next thing I know, I was editing it, and then it ended up being the House of Gold, which is kind of my greatest hits. A little bit of my second book in there and my first book, but took some of the repetitive information out and added a bunch of new art and such into it. So that's like King Tut with some bees all over him. Um, there's the first page. So I do oil paintings, and then I've really been into these pointillist techniques. So just to give people just kind of a ballpark of what this book is kind of about, my table of contents is the boat of Ra, which so the boat of Ra is basically the idea of like the sun moving over the sky, all the different hours of the day. Um, in a nutshell. And then art that teaches this idea that Egyptian art and ancient art around the world is not just ornamental and beautiful, but there's like layers of symbolism to it. And like a Buddha statue, for example, if you look at it sitting there holding your hands a certain way, eyes kind of like half shut, it's teaching you if you do this yourself, you will start to get some benefits by just sitting this way and calming the mind and so on, right? So I go on about art there, Atlantis and beyond. So I get into the ideas of ancient cultures or the floods and all these things, and people just keep going like, why do all the oldest cultures have the biggest blocks, and then as they got more towards our time, the technology seemed to have gotten kind of lost and things get not as good. So that leads into this idea of Tartaria, this idea of that maybe 200 years ago everything was better. Like if you look at stuff in Europe and all the buildings and people wearing top hats and all this, it seems like in a way that was more futuristic than some of the things we deal with now, like uh, just the architecture and just how organized and amazing things were. So whether it was time to just move on or it was on purpose kind of wiped out is open for debate. So I talk about that and I give lots of interesting photos and so on. The great cycle is just the idea that time is not necessarily linear time, like Western time. We think it's like this and this, and then this happened, and then there was Napoleon, and this happened. Uh, Hindu and ancient Egyptians talk about more of time being circular, so that cycles and things come back and back, like the precession of the equinox. All these ideas that until we learn better, we're just going to keep repeating certain cycles. So that's the gist of that. Magic and science is another topic. So whether magic would be like science and magic could be like you could wow people and be like, well, I did this and this caught on fire, and you would think it's magic, but it's maybe like science that people knew thousands of years ago. So kind of touch on that. House of Gold in the 18th dynasty, I get into a lot of the pharaohs of those times. This the art, and there's this fellow called Akhenaten who had like kind of an extended big head and all this. People think he's maybe from Sirius or something, so that's interesting. And he was possibly King Tut's father. But the fact that there's just all this gold there, it's like the idea of alchemy. Were they making gold, or were they like finding the gold, or then it leads into this idea of white gold, which is this you zap it in like the Ark of the Covenant or something, and you consume the gold, and it makes you have like kind of like superpowers and live a long time and have visionary things. And this is what makes you a true pharaoh or whatever, to lead the people with this special gold that you're eating, monoatomic gold. So, so that's some big stuff. It's a Great Pyramid. So I talk about some of the math and that's just you could talk about the Great Pyramid forever. Like you could just have a book this thick, and just the math alone is endless. Ideas about the Sphinx. About some people think it's a lot older than it is because it seems to have water damage on it. So then they're like, the last time it rained in Egypt was 12,000 years ago. So it's like, okay, maybe it's even older than 12,000. So we get into that. The soul's journey. So in the last few years, instead of like talking about the soul, it became more of a thing where I'm like, I am the soul, or I can see it. All of these. Um, Longings to travel to these places and see these temples and meet these gurus and all these things has been like my soul is pushing me to learn and evolve, right? So talk about that, and like dreams and how dreams can be a way to talk to a higher power or whatever, right? Egypt and India, I talk about some of the similarities in the spiritual systems, the chakras, the temples, and how these India and Egypt may have had like a back and forth. They may have been like trading and exchanging ideas, and maybe these empires in these places were much more bigger and overlapping than we may have originally thought, right? And then ancient mystical Oriental masonry. So I get into some of the really esoteric symbolism of masonry, and that's about it. So there's a lot there, and then just a lot of art. So um, I've had them on Amazon.ca, and the first book I was pushing, I probably sold 300 or so. The second book, I started working for the city of Calgary like the day after I released it, so I think I sold like 20 or 30 so far. I'm not sure. And then my newest House of Gold book, I've probably sold about 50 or 60 or something. On Amazon, you can go and like pay more money to have it like searchable, like in the feed, it'll come up more prominent or whatever. But I just haven't had time to pursue that. But mostly these books were like a way for me to process all this information that just seemed to be like pouring into me. So I just was like, get it in one place, write it down, edit it, and like then no matter what, I could just pull it off the shelf and be like, yeah, that's I've got that pretty cleared out, you know. That being said, I'm already sketching ideas and stuff for a potential new book, but there's no big push on that yet because they're it's fun, but it's also like all consuming.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but there's a famous writer who says that like once you start working on a novel, it's pretty much where your brain is for like the next like 3 to 8 months. A book isn't like a part-time thing, it's kind of a full-time thing in your brain. Um,
Yeah, like the first book, I think it took me a year from from the first drawing to like actually publishing, about a year. The second one, I got it down to, because I just learned the technology, I got it down to about 6 months, but it was a lot of art in it. And then the third one, again, re-editing and stuff, was probably like another year. So there's like 2.5 years of my life to make these books. So, but in some ways, I've been working on them for 30 years, looking at these things, researching, taking photos. Like, so it's kind of like the final result, I guess, if that
yeah.
makes sense.
Honestly, I will say when I read this book, I just loved it because in some ways it was more than I bargained for because
Yeah.
there's so much information, so many like beautiful pictures and illustrations. And something that I highlighted is that you were kind of inspired by the do-it-yourself Xerox like zines and posters of kind of like the 90s and things like this. Which I
Yeah.
think is really cool because I really like that culture because it's so organic and not commodified and very yeah, it's very DIY, do it yourself essentially.
Yeah. Like before I kind of got into all this spiritual business, I was kind of like a rebel, and I was like skateboarder, and we were into like punk rock, and we'd like, so the all the to find the where the gig was, you would see like a Xerox thing and it'd be like taped up to a pole downtown somewhere or whatever, and you'd be like, but you knew like the real hardcore people, like the real deal people, are there, not like doing it for fashion or whatever. So and yeah, they'd make their own like skateboard magazines and like sell them out of the back of their car and stuff. So I just thought that was kind of, I wanted to bring some of that to my book, in that no one's really an expert. You just like, it's just a matter of open to interpretation, and that the classic academic world like doesn't want to look at some of these ideas very much, right? They're just outside of the box, and there's kind of a set timeline, and everything is kind of not evolving anymore. So I just wanted to like break it up. But I said reimagine, so I'm not getting into semantics about like arguing with people, and they'll be like, I'll show you this and I'll show you this. I'll just be like, just, it's just open. I'm not saying this is the definite truth of all time, but some people say this, and maybe we could look at this, or maybe we could see this in a different light or something, right? So to just be entertained and to do your own research in a lot of this stuff. So at the end, I include like lots of links on YouTube and books that I liked and bibliography, so that it's like you can go deeper in some of these topics if you're interested, right? So
Yeah, there's a super extensive bibliography, which I actually really appreciate because you can tell, like, what I like about this book, you can tell that you're bringing in sources from like all sorts of places, like your personal experience, like books you've
yeah,
read, things you've seen. You even mentioned there's some ideas that you're not even sure like where they come from because you have so much experience that it's kind of,
yeah. If I've been
yeah.
looking at this Egypt stuff for 30 years, I'm like, I just kind of know that, but I can't tell you I learned it on this day from that person. I'm just like, it's just in there somehow, right? So and whether it's like, well, part of me deep down thinks there's some kind of like past life stuff where I was like, everyone always thinks they were Napoleon or they were Cleopatra, someone famous, but I was like what I am now. I was like an artist, and like when I was in the Valley of the Kings, I was looking at the art. I'm like, I was one of the guys doing this. I was the guy carving and painting and being like a craftsman. So
And
that, because there's no reason why I should look at those hieroglyphs or whatever and have like a recognition, because I grew up in southern Calgary, right? So
honestly, I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, when it comes to past lives, everyone wants to be like Marie Antoinette or something like this, but it's actually I'm glad you brought it.
statistically, other people had to just be regular people for a while, right?
Yeah, you might have had a life just as a peasant, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
but I'm actually glad you brought that up because I wanted to touch on something specific because there's so much information in this book. So I had a few specific questions for you.
yeah.
So you are an artist. You do have a degree in fine art, which I think is very interesting, and this book has a lot of art in it. And what I really liked about this is most books that you read with that are very information heavy, they don't always have they either have diagrams or they don't have super artistic. And something that you mentioned actually, you mentioned a lot about the nature of art and the nature of spiritual art, and even how like the pyramids and a lot of like older architecture is essentially art that's kind of showcasing people how to live or act a certain way or how to kind of achieve,
Teaching them something. Yeah,
teaching them something spiritual
yeah,
enlightenment, things
yeah,
like this. And so I actually had a specific question for you because I'm a creative writer and I'm really into art therapy.
Yeah.
You're also an artist. So you have a quote by Rudolf Steiner, which says, "The painter who paints a picture today with his soul's blood is also creating something which will sooner or later be dispersed in thousands of atoms. What has imperishable and continuing value, what is eternal, is that he has created, that something from his soul has flowed into matter." And I thought this was very interesting because I'm a very creative person, and I find what I've started to find as I've gotten a bit older is that it's almost like there's a spiritual reason or meaning to the creation. So I'll create something, I'll write something, maybe I'll work on a project, and then when I step back, it's almost like it's more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but or if this is kind of what how you feel about a lot of older architecture, art, things like this. Because I found a lot of my spiritual experiences have actually come from me doing a lot of creative work and then stepping back and then it brings in an epiphany or something. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that, but I found that quote so interesting.
Yeah, just the like almost like I'm like if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, that like people could search me and they could find something that I poured my guts and my soul into this book, right? I didn't hold back, and as where I was at the time, I feel like I put it all in there, right? And also in a way that I wanted it to be like not so overwhelming. I tried to simplify it as much as I could and edit it down and put lots of pictures in so it's not boring. So someone who doesn't really know anything about this could pick it up and kind of get up to speed fairly quickly. So yeah, like say Beethoven writes Ode to Joy or something. It's like he's gone, his body's gone, but that those notes and that beauty and that like way that it moves people is carrying on for hundreds of years, right? So that's like like great art, like art that just stays and people still remember his name because he wrote this perfect thing. Or a Van Gogh painting or something where it's like nobody else can do that. The way you painted, people can copy a Van Gogh painting and try to copy it, but no one can paint the way he saw the universe. Like it was such a unique kind of vision, right? So I think that's all anybody could hope is just to leave a little chunk of something that was from deep inside that they had to express and they got it out there, and it's like was like maybe like 5 or 10 times in my life I've created art where I'm like, I can't do any better. I don't know. Like usually I'm like, oh, I wish I could change the foot a little bit or the pink's a little off or something. But whereas like everything is balanced, everything's pleasing. There's nothing I could do to make it better. I'm like, that's as good as it gets. And it doesn't matter if I was like 20 or 40 or 50. It's just like on that day at that time, the colors came together and I didn't overdo it and I just stopped in the right amount of time that's like as good as it gets. Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense, and it
Yeah.
also totally connects with everything that's been written here about the pyramids, ancient cultures, things like that. Because you mentioned like the Fibonacci sequence, I think it's called.
Yeah.
You mentioned even like kind of the alignment of the pyramids. Like one of the, I think the biggest pyramid is aligned specifically with the speed of light in a vacuum. I think you mentioned, which is crazy.
Is like coincidence or like what the heck's going on? Yeah, there's like endless things with the pyramid where it's like, what the heck is this, and who were these people? Like, what would make you so long ago just be so obsessed to making something so complex and so grandiose? When the official story is people like walking around in grass huts and like struggling to survive and catching a fish or something. But at the same time, there's this like architecture and engineering that's like doesn't really place. It doesn't make sense. Like that it's there. The farther you go back, it should be more primitive. But the farther you go back with a lot of Egyptian stuff is just like, but which leads to the idea, was there Atlantis or some other place that brought this technology? But then it goes round and round. Then you're like, well, what about them? Where did they get their stuff from? And then it always leads to like some extraterrestrial thing. Like
And that's
every
the fun
culture in the
part.
world says it was the sky gods that brought us this stuff, like almost consistently. So whether what that means is that in a shamanic state they meditated and contacted something, or did actual beings come down and hand them a bunch of technology to get them evolving quicker for some reason, or So it leads to a lot of questions. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why it's so interesting because people talk a lot about sort of the like the bird looking people and things like this. And it's like, why are there so many similarities? It's not about the differences. It's like, why do you see similarities around the world, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is too that I thought is interesting with art is I've had a few spiritual experiences, and I found that I don't know if you found this, but I found like if I see a spirit or if I connect with something, it actually looks like the art that's been depicted. So it's not really that the art is a representation. It's almost like the art is the perfect expression of whatever it is that you're connecting with. Or I don't know if you've ever had an experience like that. But I found sometimes you're surprised by how accurate the art is with your own experiences.
Uh, I I think what you're getting at is like that you've heard of the idea of like in Jungian psychology, like the collective unconscious or something, or the Akashic records, whatever. Like there's a place where stuff gets kind of written down, or it's always there to access in certain states or whatever. Or like, so people often have a vision of like Buddha or Jesus, something, and it's like it's an archetypal kind of greatest hits version that they maybe see. Like it's like maybe Jesus actually looked not like the picture you see in art as much, but it's kind of over art history over the hundreds and thousands of years or whatever. It's become kind of a go-to image of a man with a bit of a beard and long hair and stuff, and like or Buddha is like kind of half closed eyes, and if he who knows if he really looked like that, he probably looked like a East Indian guy that didn't look like that or whatever, so um
I know if you read Siddhartha, which is kind of a representation of
oh,
like Buddha's,
that's
he's
funny. That's my
he's a
actual
skinny
number
guy in
one.
that one.
That's my favorite book of all time.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
Really? I
yeah.
like that book too. It's been so long since I've read it.
It's perfect because you can read it at any point in your life, and it still like speaks to your soul. Like it's like the archetypal searching and we fall off the path, and then we like get into material things and sensual things, and then we get sick of that and we go back and like see it in like kind of the middle way where it doesn't I don't have to be so extreme, and like it's just like that book is like 100 plus years old, but it seems like it was written last week or something, like pertinent to a lot of the human struggles today, you know.
Yeah, and it's surprising. It's like because I studied literature, it's surprising more people haven't read it because it's such a
Yeah.
big book. I will let you know. Unfortunately, Zoom, I didn't realize 40 minutes would go by that fast. Holy cannoli.
Oh
But I
no.
will say, if you have a couple more things you want to mention, I can always do another Zoom interview with you.
We
Because that
could.
went by way faster than they
Yeah.
usually do. Because I was going to say this book has a lot to it. Um, but yeah, just because I don't want us to get kicked off.
Yeah. What
But
do you got, like 5 minutes or not even?
like 2 minutes.
I'm just gonna show art to get people
Beautiful. Yeah. I think what
excited.
I'm going to do too is I'm going to I might just use a little bit of video tool and just overput if people are listening, I'll show some like pictures from it.
So yeah, I really put a lot of it's like for the first time in many years, I really got back into my art. Like sometimes I don't do much for years, but this was like obsessive. I'd just be like the next one, next one, next one.
Yeah.
So my family was going crazy where I've got like the table covered and I'm doing like 10 drawings simultaneously. So there's a Buddha one. Yeah. So that's an oil painting.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So
I found all the art was very luminous, even though it's
okay.
in does that make sense? There was a lot
Here,
of
here's about the decans in astrology. So there's you're used to the 12 signs, but then there's sub signs. It gets pretty complicated.
yeah,
Another one. That's my wife's hands
that's awesome. That's
holding
beautiful.
fire,
You
and
hands are always tough.
boom. And this one's really kind of psychedelic and a lot of info packed in there. So
Super psychedelic.
I like to keep stuff in there that people like research, and one day they'll look at it again. It's like, oh, now I know what that is. Well, this is that Egyptian 18th dynasty pharaoh Akhenaten, who was kind of the first guy to believe in like a one monotheistic god instead of all the gods or netters in Egypt. Yeah, so
That's super cool.
that's about all we got time for. But this has
I
been
hate, sorry,
fun.
I'm too chatty. I should just
Oh
start
no,
interviews.
no, it was perfect. It was perfect.
But thank you so much for talking with me about your book. If you want to keep talking, like if you want it to be a little longer, I don't mind like following up tomorrow and talking a bit more because I have a bunch of questions. I have like everything highlighted.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we would just do another Zoom meeting at some point, or
if you would like to.
Oh, tomorrow I have to. The party's over. I got to go back to work tomorrow. So,
Oh, bummer.
so
Oh,
it'd have to
geez.
be
Well,
like a Friday morning or something. Like
yeah.
I don't work Fridays, so maybe we shoot
So
for next Friday morning at like 9 or 10 or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm super flexible, but thank you so
yeah,
much for doing this. I wish
yeah,
I could have posted you in person. And if you want to keep talking, because I used to do this with a radio station where I'd book like 2 hours. So if you want to keep talking, let me know.
yeah.
But thank you so much for your time and for
Okay.
letting me help.
Amazon.ca or Amazon.anything, you can find Robert Nichols, and House of Gold is the kind of go to. The paperback is much cheaper than the hard copy, but the hard copy is really nice. So
Yeah.
if you're serious, yeah,
Everyone, if you're serious about Egyptology, buy the book.
yeah,
Thank you
I'll
so
get you.
much.
Okay, so we'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later. I'm going to stop